but 3 counties or jurisdictions experienced enrollment decreases. Montgomery County's 1.4% decline exceeds the 0.9% statewide average decrease. On page 57, you can see that approximately 47% of Montgomery County students qualify for free and reduced price meals, and statewide, over half of the students are eligible for free and reduced price meals. The county ranks second statewide in the share of students requiring English language uh, learner services at 20% of the enrollment. On page 59, you can see for special education services, the county ranks 8th above the statewide average. Now, page 61 illustrates the impact of the revised free and reduced price meal enrollment count, which increased the count by 33,564 students for funding purposes. And this revision limits statewide decrease from 9.4% to 1.7%. And for Montgomery County, instead of a 10.6% decrease, the decline is limited to 2.7%, representing an increase of 5,341 students in the count. And this concludes my presentation, but Valerie will demonstrate resources available on our web page, and we will welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Arnold. Good morning again to the chair and the members of the Montgomery County Delegation. I know this was a lot of information to digest, so I want to just take a brief moment to show you where on our website you can find our state aid resources. So starting from the Maryland General Assembly website, you select Legislative Services, and this will take you to the Department of Legislative Services website. So from here, you select the Budget tab, followed by the State Aid to Local Governments tab. And here you can find all of our state aid resources. On the left of our page, you can find various sections which allows you to navigate to any specific state aid resource you would like to review. However, for today, I want to draw your attention to 4 key resources. And the first is found on the state aid reports, and that's the 2-year charts by program. And this chart provides information for fiscal 26 and fiscal 27 by area and by program. And this chart also provides the information for the state and for each jurisdiction. So here, if you want to navigate to your county, Montgomery County, the chart allows you to navigate your search specifically to Montgomery County. The next resource I want to draw your attention to is found under session reports, and that's the State Aid Overview Report, which Arnold actually used in his presentation today. And right below that is the local fiscal briefings. So here we have prepared a briefing summarizing the proposed state funding for Montgomery County. So you can find that resource here as well. And finally, I want to draw your attention to the highlighted section of our page, and that's the public school funding. So on the first page, this shows the share of public school funding from state and local sources. Pages 2 shows the total per pupil funding. Pages 3 and pages 4 shows pages 3 and pages 4 actually breaks out the data showing per pupil funding from state and the local sources. So if you have any questions concerning anything we would have presented here today, please feel free to reach out to us. Again, I want to say thank you on behalf of DLS for giving us the opportunity to present. I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you to the whole team for being here and providing this information. We will start with questions and remind our colleagues to use the virtual raise hand function, or if you're having trouble with that, you can text me, and we'll turn first to Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's early, and those were a lot of numbers, but It does, but thank you for your presentation. I didn't mean to disparage your presentation. But I am concerned because in every one of these categories, what struck me is that Montgomery County is really not getting, I mean, even if we look at per pupil funding, we are way down the list in terms of how much money we're getting. And we're the most populous county in the state. And I just wondered, I mean, I can see in a couple of categories where that would happen. And you pointed out, for example, that we do our own library. So, that's an exception. But it just I mean, how is that? Why is that happening? That the amount of money that we're getting from the state is, eighth, 17th, 14th in the state in terms of not just actual dollars, but also in an area like per pupil funding. And when I was trying to look at the Prince George's numbers compared to the Montgomery numbers, for example, our neighbor, they were sometimes twice as high as what of the aid that we were getting. Can you explain why that's the case?
Yes, I would take the question, Arnold. The main reason this is happening is that overall, when you look at total state aid of the $12 billion that the state provides local governments, the vast majority of this funding, 70%, is allocated by local wealth, and particularly education funding. So if we go to the education chart on page 42, it breaks down funding and the vast majority of state funding has been targeted to public school systems. If you look at right at the beginning of our presentation, it shows that nearly 77% of all of our state aid is targeted to the public school system. And the vast majority of that funding is targeted to low wealth jurisdictions. And so you can see on page 42, when you break out total education funding, 9.1 billion is direct aid, and that goes to the local school systems. And 1 billion is retirement payments. You can see that the vast majority of direct aid is allocated by local wealth. That takes into account a jurisdiction's property tax base and income tax base. And as you can see there, Montgomery County ranks 21 because it is one of the wealthier jurisdictions in the state measured by those two indicators. Retirement payments do not incorporate local wealth. That's one of the few programs, state aid programs, that does not incorporate local wealth. And there you can see Montgomery County is number 3. That's based on the teacher salary base and teacher salaries and employment. If you go down to, for example, page 45, that is our general funding program. All of this state aid, which is $4.4 billion, all of that is adjusted for local wealth. It focuses on the number of students you have and also your total wealth base. If you go to the next page, and you can see here Montgomery County ranks 20. The next page details funding under the Blueprint initiatives. Now, this is the most recent state aid funding enhancements. It's basically what was done through Kerwin. And you're looking at total $1 billion in funding. Statewide funding is at around $1,300. You can see Montgomery County's funding is only $400. Not only, and so why is this happening? The vast majority, half of this funding, is under the concentration of poverty program. This program does not only reflects poverty, it reflects deep poverty. It targets schools with a very high level of poverty. That's why it's the concentration of poverty. And as you can see, the two school systems that receive the most funding under this program is Baltimore City with close to 200 million and Prince George's County with 157, because those are the two school systems who has the most students residing in deep poverty. The next slide talks about our targeted student population. Now here you see Montgomery County is ranked a little bit, it's a little bit below the average. Here, Montgomery County has a very high concentration of English language learners. So you can see that they get a very high concentration of funding there. But also Prince George's County ranks #1 in the number of students. Now, these programs not only focus on these targeted student population, it also includes local wealth. So that's when we need to go down to the slide on page 50. Page 50 kind of shows you wealth per pupil. Jurisdictions that have a high level of local wealth tends to have less state funding. And here you can see that Montgomery County ranks 5th statewide on their per pupil wealth. Prince George's County is 16 and Baltimore City is 20. Now, if we move down to page 53, it kind of breaks down your two local wealth measures, your property wealth and your income wealth. And here you can see that Montgomery County ranks 5th in per pupil property wealth and 2 in local income wealth. So those are the major reasons. So this year, Montgomery County had a larger decrease in their student enrollment and a higher increase in their local wealth. And when you look at where most of the state funding is going towards, most state aid is moving towards funding public schools. And those are the programs that are heavily adjusted for local wealth. And more recently, not only local wealth, but we're focusing it on targeted students. And some of the targeted student populations are those in the concentration of poverty. So it's not just looking at low-income students, you're looking at areas with a concentration of low-income students. So that's what really is driving what's happening in state aid in Montgomery County and also in some of the other jurisdictions like Garrett County. You know, Garrett County is a disparity grant county. It's a very low income county, but if you look at their property wealth, they're #3. They're #3 in property wealth, 14th in income, and their state aid is being limited too. So that's what's happening this year as we fully fund the blueprint, which is designed in nature to put more resources into the most low wealth jurisdictions serving the most disadvantaged students. So,
okay. Thank you very much for that explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Foley, for that question. I appreciate that we got to go a little deeper on that point. Colleagues, any other questions? Yes, Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just ask some questions that may just offer a little bit more context to Delegate Foley's important question. Great data as always, but largely what you showed, other than some transportation funding, it was all operating, right?
correct.
Okay, so it didn't show something like anything in the capital budget.
Correct. There's no capital funding that will be shown in our capital budget analysis that our budget department will do.
Great. And you mentioned the $27 million for bus rapid transit. Is that every year?
That has been in recent years, correct.
It's in a formula somewhere, right?
I'm not sure, but I think that's the amount that has been put into the budget just to assist Montgomery County for that purpose.
Okay, I'm fairly confident in a formula, so I feel pretty good about that. Does this include like the disproportionate benefit of something like the biotech tax credit that Montgomery County obviously benefits from?
No, it does not.
Okay, does it include the WMATA subsidy that Montgomery and Prince George's benefit
No,
disproportionately
this is
from?
only the state aid that goes in through the state aid formulas. It does not include capital and also doesn't include state funding for transportation projects through MDOT. This is only for the transportation grants. It's only the money that flows through the local highway user revenues for local roads that goes to the county governments and municipal governments.
Okay, so really important information, but a narrow slice of the overall pie.
Correct. There's a lot of state funding that goes to local governments through the state agencies, through state purposes. State residents receive funding through MDOT, through state roads maintenance. This is only targeting the money that goes to your county government and to the municipal governments. It does not reflect money or services provided by the state government through state agencies. So your residents also receive a lot of funding through Medicaid, through other types of social programs, through state agencies. This is not accounted for in this report.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next is Delegate Chi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got several emails from very concerned constituents about DDA funding cuts. I would like to get more details from the staff here. If you could elaborate a little bit about that kind of funding formula change and what that means to people who really depend on that, including the people who helped them. I heard that one way of reducing budget is to cut the salaries of the staff who help people who depend on DDA service. Could you talk about that? Thank you.
We will refer that question to our budget department. Once again, that is a state program funded through a state agency. So we don't really have information on that, but we can refer your question to our health and human services analyst who's analyzing the state budget, who should have that information for you.
Thank you. I have a question myself. I did just want to note, colleagues, that this presentation has been emailed out to everybody's inboxes. So in case there's any numbers or data that any of my colleagues are interested in looking at, again, down the road, DLS has already shared the document that they were sharing with us. I did want to, if Mr. Aja can pull back up the visuals, I had a question about student enrollment on page 56. So looking at kind of that middle column, ranking by enrollment growth. So I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So am I interpreting this correctly that the school system that had the largest student growth, Prince George's County, only grew by 148 students?
That's correct. This year, only 3 school systems actually had an enrollment increase. Most school systems had decreases. The statewide decrease is around 1%. Montgomery County's decrease is slightly above that. So yes.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure I was interpreting that correctly because that's a pretty troubling trend statewide, not just for our county. So thank you. Colleagues, any other questions on the presentation? Okay, seeing none, we'll thank the whole DLS team for being here today. We very much appreciate the information and presentation and answering our questions. Thank you. And next, we will turn to the 3 bills that were reported out of local committees this week. We're going to go in a slightly different order and start with the report from the Education, Elections, and Housing Committee. I'll turn it over to Chair Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this week we voted out MC2, which is Delegate Charkoudian's bill on compensation for the Board of Education. This year, it's in a slightly different posture with the salaries pegged to our salaries. So I would like to move favorable on the bill.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that was moved by Chair Ziegler, seconded by Delegate Charkoudian, and we will go to discussion and questions. And I see Delegate Wu has his hand raised. Go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Sorry, I got this question late, but I heard from Howard County actually we have a similar bill, tied one position salary to another position. We heard from people, like some local residents, that that's kind of is not right because both are elected position. You shouldn't set one salary to another salary. Do we check that?
Chair Ziegler, was that something that came up in your local committee?
No, it wasn't. I was just thinking about that. And maybe I misused the word pegged. Could I call on Delegate Charkoudian to respond to that?
Certainly.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I understand the concern that you're raising. I think that what we did is we said that their salary will be set to the same salary. We have a compensation commission, And every year, a nonpartisan, non-us group decides each term, based on cost of living and other things, how our salary would increase. And so what this does is it says that whatever salary we have, that's what the salary of the board members will be. So I'm not sure I understand the concern about having two separate sets of elections with the same salary tied to it. Maybe you could say more about that.
Yeah, so I think the concern we have quite we have similar bills in Howard County. They talk about like a set salary for the sheriff with the other elected position, and I think that that's in Constitution. That's not how it's set it because both are independent elected positions.
So the Constitution doesn't allow us to do that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's for other position. I'm not sure for this position. I just have a question.
You think
I
it's
should
the
make a
Maryland
question.
Constitution or the Montgomery County what Constitution do we think that's the case for?
I don't know. They talk about for Howard County only. So I just thought about that question. I think about this one too. So
I don't know that issue. I mean, if the body's ready to continue, I mean, we could certainly yeah, we can look into that. If the body's ready to continue, we also could move it pending the answer to that. We've been talking about this for a while and no one else has brought it up, but that doesn't mean it's not an issue. I just don't know anything about that.
Terzika, were you looking to be recognized?
Yes, please. I'm sorry, I didn't find my hand. Yes, I wonder if I didn't misspeak when I used the word pegged. It is not pegged in the sense of the Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the US dollar. That's a different, perhaps I should have used the word benchmarked, but I think it is an interesting question that we can check into.
Yeah, and just for everyone's reference, so the bill before us says that an elected member of the county board is entitled to receive an annual salary. No, I'm sorry, is entitled to receive annually as compensation, the same compensation as a member of the General Assembly, other than the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, in effect at the beginning of the elected member's term. So it simply is referencing whatever the compensation has been set by the compensation committee or commission, I'm not sure which word it is, at the state level. I'm not meaning to dismiss your inquiry, Delegate Wu, but I see there's some other hands raised, so I think we're going to go through those and then figure out if we're going to proceed with the bill or not today. But let's get some other discussion, and it can be on other points. But I'll just take folks in order here. Delegate Spiegel is next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to the committee and the bill sponsor. Generally don't have any strong objections to the bill, but I just wanted to ask about this comment that was in the committee report that the annual salary for these positions could either be set by state law or through local legislation based on the recommendation of the Board of Education's own compensation commission. And I was wondering if you could just give us a quick reminder why or what the history is of why and how the local legislation either has or has not advanced, and what impact this bill has on the ability of local government to continue to have that alternate authority. Does this completely preempt that, or would they still have an alternate authority sort of on top of this bill's increase of the board member salary? Thank you.
Delegate Charkoudian, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I can try. What document are you reading that from?
I am reading that from the report of the committee, of the EEH committee.
A fiscal note or?
No, the report.
It says that, sorry, I will open that now, but I'm not sure that I was tracking that as a concept.
It's in the background section of the report from the committee.
Local legislation. I think that means it has been my understanding, and I've had multiple conversations with county council members, board of Board of Education members, legislative staff, and it is has always been everyone's understanding. I mean, this has been an issue in front of this body, this delegation, since since like 2017 or 18, maybe. We had bills in 2019 on it. So no one's ever suggested that this could be done at a local level. I don't know who wrote that, but I'm wondering if the reference is actually to say local legislation, meaning a local bill in the delegation, as opposed to state bill. I don't think that again, maybe it's been possible to do it locally all along, but I don't think anyone who's in those positions thinks it is. So,
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. That was kind of my understanding too. So I was trying to make sense of that sentence, and maybe it's just inartfully drafted and it means what you say it means. But I just wanted to check on that.
And just to add a little more flavor on that point, the current salary for the Board of Education is set through state law. As a member of the Ways and Means Committee over the years, we've seen a number of other bills about compensation and salaries for other boards of education across the state where they similarly are adjusting the salary through state legislation. So I believe that is something that is typically done at the state level. I wonder if Delegate Corman was trying to weigh in on that point and maybe some history of a prior local bill, and I welcome his remarks at this time.
I feel so old. All right. So a number of years ago, it was Delegate Lutke, set up a Board of Education Compensation Commission that meets every 4 years. They give us recommendations. They can't change anything. The county council can't change it. The school board can't change it. So when they say local legislation, they mean a local bill that you, Delegate Spiegel or Delegate Charkoudian, introduces. But we do have this Board of Education Commission. And I do wonder, I'll ask the sponsor since the chair was foolish enough to give me the floor, if this bill will repeal that, because we don't need that if we're binding them to our salary. So just a thought. I don't want to hold up the bill, but just something to think about going forward.
This bill doesn't repeal that. And I think I think that would be a separate conversation. I think there's reasons to continue and there's reasons to not continue. I won't make the case right now because I don't think that's in front of us to consider, but we could talk about it.
Thank you. We'll go next to Delegate Kaufman.
Thank you. Just protocol, do we need to ask questions or can I make a statement about the legislation?
You are welcome to do either.
Well, for me, I'm an enthusiastic supporter of this legislation because I believe passionately that this is an issue of equity, so that we just don't have wealthy individuals with wealthy spouses running for the Board of Education. I knew two former board members who I won't mention who have told me the only reason they were able to run is because their husbands made a good amount of money. And then I've talked to other board members who are currently serving who talk about the financial strain that the $25,000 causes them. And so and as Lorick has pointed out, not everyone is married and and that sometimes delays your foray into public service. So I think if we truly want a diverse, wide array of individuals running who aren't having to rely on a wealthy spouse where their income is just supplementary, we need to pass this. And I commend Delegate Charkoudian for taking the feedback because people had sticker shock last year about how much she increased it to. But I just think it's an equity issue because right now only certain people can run for a job that the Board of Education Compensation Commission said typically takes about 60 hours a week. So I'm going to enthusiastically vote yes when this comes for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Delegate Wilkins.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate this bill, and I'm grateful to Delegate Charkoudian for helping to lead us on this. Over the years, we've had a lot of discussion around compensation. I think there's a general interest to increase the compensation of the school board. We haven't been able to quite agree on the actual amount. I do want to mention and say for the record that just as a new chair, as I'm figuring out my processes, I'll be recorded as not voting or abstaining on bills that are coming to Ways and Means so that I can dig into them in my actual committee. But I do have a question on this bill. What is sort of the nexus? So we're tying it to the salaries of legislators. For the bill sponsor or the committee, I don't know if you discussed this, but what is the nexus that we're seeing between our roles, time spent, our duties, and the school board roles, duties, time spent, all of that, that sort of creates a clear nexus in terms of tying our salaries together? I wanted to understand that a little better.
Thank you for that question. Delegate Charkoudian, do you want to just give a little more context in terms of what was in the Compensation Committee report, in terms of a reminder of what their recommendation was, and then direct
Sure.
answer Delegate Wilkins' question?
Sure. I think that the Compensation Committee report, just to remind folks, recommends I think it was 120,000 a year, 130,000 a year. And that's based on a number of factors. I actually got the same number when I went to the living wage calculator for if you do a living wage in Montgomery County for a single parent with 2 children. For a full-time job, you get roughly the same 130,000 a year. So that was, if you may recall, was the number I had last year. I think this is a tricky area because or not tricky, it's just a nuanced area. We have a lot of agreement that 25,000 is absolutely not enough. And then somewhere between 25 and 130, people have all kinds of different ideas. And so last year, I think when there was interest in moving this forward, but a lot of folks not comfortable with 130,000, one of the suggestions that came up was to peg it to our salary, and that would be sort of a similarly kind of part-time job, which I would continue to argue that neither of our jobs are part-time jobs, but the idea was this is a similarly sort of fake part-time job that's actually a full-time job, but you could still theoretically, many of us do have another job, and so there was sort of, that was one of the parallels, is an elected office that is conceivably part-time, and has the ability to have another full-time job, but really not like almost nothing kind of part-time. So I think that was kind of the case that was made. I think that there's, you can make a case for any number of other dollar amounts that you could justify, I think. I think the thing that I was most, that I think is most helpful with the tying it to another set of salaries that already have a process to increase them over time, is that idea that, because initially this issue came up for us in whenever it was 17, 18, or 19, I'm not actually sure, and maybe before that, and then there was a commission, and then there was a consideration, and then so like for 10 years now, there's been a conversation of like 25,000 is not enough, what should it be? And so the final benefit, and this is what I think is maybe most attractive, is that it will increase over time without, continued deliberation each year by us.
Got it. Thank you so much, and thanks for your work on it.
Next is Delegate Kaiser. I'd be having some issues unmuting. Ralph, there we
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, and I'm also trying to turn off my video. All right, thank you, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark, Delegate Corman, for giving that history. I just wanted to respond to one thing that I heard, and I know that more than half of our delegation and maybe more took some umbrage to, but when we refer to our Board of Education members, they're not just there because their husbands can afford to get them there, but in fact, they are able to get there on their own financial means. So I want to make sure that the record shows that women don't rely merely on their husbands to serve on the Board of Education or any other role. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Kaiser. Next, Delegate Lopez.
Thank you. And thank you to the bill sponsor for bringing this forward. So I'm looking at the draft language, and it says $25,000 or the new plan for the General Assembly amount, right? To be colloquial about it. But it doesn't say who decides the or. Like in
and
this
actually,
language.
Delegate Lopez, I'm going to correct you. The 25,000 is in brackets. The bracket is on the line above.
Gotcha. But the question still stands. Who makes the determination whether they receive 25,000 or the new amount? is it they all individually decide? Do they collectively decide? Like, talk to me about that approval process, because it's not clear from the bill language. And I just don't know how that part of this works.
So I think there might be a little bit misreading of the legislation. So the 25,000 is actually being struck and the completely replaced with it's just the compensation of a member of the General Assembly. So there's no decision point to be made. It just would
Gotcha.
be exactly what delegates and
Gotcha.
senators make. Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear.
No,
Thank
it's good to
you.
be on the same page here. I do want to just clarify a couple of things, and I see Delegate Wallach has her hand up. First of all, let me circle back on I guess the salary amount that's proposed under the legislation. So colleagues, if you recall from last session, we had a lot of debate in delegation over the local legislation that we had last year on this front. And I had individual conversations with most members of the delegation about kind of where people's thoughts were. And I'll say, thinking back on all of those conversations, I do think the legislation this year does fit more, where most people were headed. Maybe not everyone, but where most people were thinking about potential compensation for the school board members. I do also want to note, and I thank our counsel, Jen Young, for pointing this out, the legislation before us actually does repeal the Compensation Commission. It turns out that the bracketed language on pages 2 and 3 of the bill, that is the only reference to the Compensation Commission. And I've double checked that in statute too. So this legislation does set the new salary amount going forward, and also repeals that commission moving forward. Let's go back to hands in the queue here, and we'll go to Delegate Wallach.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. I don't have a question. I just wanted to provide a comment and thank Delegate Charkoudian for bringing this bill forward. I very much believe that the salary that was recommended by the work group, which was, the 130, what have you, is the direction we should be headed in. I know there's some disagreement, but I did want to sort of be on the record to say that I believe that they should be there. It's people should be paid a fair wage, and it would also get a lot of talent to be interested in running for these positions, which are so critical for our school system. So I just wanted to we're working towards incrementalism, and that's okay. But I do hope one day we get to a place where they are compensated as I believe they should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Wallach. And yes, this certainly was a bill where I think there was a lot of difference of opinion on, has been. There are members of the delegation who'd like to go much higher. There are members of the delegation who'd like to go lower. So, I think it's about trying to figure out how do we, find something that people can live with. Delegate Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the committee for the work on the bill. I just had a quick statement. Again, I would really just like us to figure out, I know, again, this is incrementalism. Well, I don't know if there's a way to tie this to sort of force the county's hand or the school system's hand on providing more funding for staff, which I think is, and I know I've talked to many folks, is almost more critical. I'm fully supportive of paying our board members more, but still, I think if their hands are tied behind their back with the staff capacity that they have, given the level of oversight for the size of the school system. And then just procedurally, a question. So the compensation committee for us obviously pegs a salary that increases over the 4 years of our term. So does this immediately give school board members, I mean, again, the devil's in the details here, and maybe we can work this out, but is it the compensation for us at the end of 4 years after the increase, or the compensation the first year that we get when we implement the state compensations committee, the state compensation committee's report?
Delegate Charkoudian, would you like to answer that?
Yes. So the implementation is this. Sorry, I'm just trying to read from the bill. Members of the take effect at the beginning of the next following term of office. So it's my understanding that it can't change while they're in the middle of their office. And so it takes effect the next time that an office starts. The limitation does not apply to an individual appointed or elected after the effective date of this bill. So people who are currently in office, it would take effect the next time their term starts. And then for people who are not currently in office, it takes effect when they start.
So like to give some real world examples, there's going to be new members of the school board elected in 2026. They take office at the beginning of December of 2026. Those members would get, should this pass, I think the effective date is before that. Yes, October 1.
October, yeah.
Those members would receive whatever the compensation is for a General Assembly member in 2026, and that would be the salary for the duration of their term. And for members of the school board who say are running for reelection and are on the ballot in 2028, they would receive whatever the General Assembly compensation is in 2028. Do I have that right, Delegate Charkoudian?
That's my understanding of what's written here.
Okay. Delegate Solomon, did you have an additional question?
No, I was just curious because obviously the technicalities of the report, I just didn't want to create a problem for us later down the line. Thanks, Madam Chair.
No, thank you for raising that question. I'm not seeing any other questions in the queue, so I'm actually going to turn over to Jen Young now to circle back on the good question that Delegate Wu originally asked when we started this whole conversation about the constitutionality of this. So I'll let you answer.
Okay, I'm like beginning as a lawyer, I'm hesitant to say absolutely anything with this limited amount of research time. But I will say, as far as I know, which is fairly confident, there's no problem with tying this to another salary, elected or otherwise, because it's kind of creating like not exactly some kind of a formula, but it works a little bit like that. There's a number is being created, and you could say it's a specific number, or you can tie it to someone else's salary. And this comes up a lot in the context of state's attorney salaries and also the sheriff's salaries. I was doing a little bit of research while we were having the discussion. And for example, the Calvert County state's attorney, their salary is tied to that of a circuit court judge. So it increases as the circuit court judges also increase. And then we also set the judicial salaries too. So, and I should say the General Assembly does not, we. As far as I know, there's absolutely no constitutional problem with doing it this way. We do it for other elected offices, tying it to elected offices or any number of other things, as long as the salary regime generally is in place before the beginning of a term. So, and that where Delegate Charkoudian and the others were talking about, in this case, it was put into the statute itself. For the higher level ones, the General Assembly can't do something, or it doesn't take a salary increase doesn't take effect for the things that the General Assembly has power over in this case, because it's like a level lower than that. And it was by it originally was by locals. It was put into the statute. And so now that it's not, that might be a little bit different, but it doesn't hurt having it there either. So I don't think there is a constitutional issue with this. If there were, it would be a broader one throughout the code. So I think we're okay to do that.
Okay, thank you. Hearing that answer, I feel okay with moving ahead, but of course, if any member of the delegation has concerns and wants to hold the bill, they are welcome to speak up. Okay, not seeing anybody then. We have a favorable motion that was seconded on the table. A reminder that if you want to be recorded as voting, please turn your camera on at this time. And I don't see anyone else wishing to be recognized before we vote. So all those in favor of, sorry, make sure I have the right number, bill number MC 2-26, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, and I think there was some lag with Delegate Mercury North. You're in the affirmative, is that correct? Okay, yes.
Affirmative, yes, Madam Chair.
So that bill passes unanimously in terms of the folks who were voting. And so thank you. And I will note that I think our members who jointly represent another county might have to pop off the call. So I will note that Delegate Ziegler and perhaps Delegate Wu will be excused for the rest of the meeting, but thank you. We will next move to our committee report for economic development. Chair Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have one bill before you. It is MC 7-26, Montgomery County Public Schools Local Food Procurement. Basically, what this bill does is it requires the public school system to identify the dollar amount of food procured for local meals during this, the 26-27 school year that is certified as coming from local farms and certified Chesapeake Bay invasive species. And then it requires the school system to set target increases for the dollar amount of food procured from those sources for the 2028, 29, 30, 31, 31, 32, and 33, 33, 34, and 36, 37 school years using that data as a baseline. I think I characterized that correctly. Delegate Charkoudian, jump in if I didn't. Let me just say that the county executive sent us a letter saying that they support the bill and asked for a favorable report. The county council has not yet taken a position. MCPS attended our meeting and they were fine with the bill. So, Madam Chair, that's the bill. I guess, do I move it now? I don't remember.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, I move favorable on the bill.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So the bill was moved favorable by Chair Foley, seconded by Vice Chair Wims, and we will open for questions or discussion. Not seeing any. We will take a vote then. A reminder, please turn your cameras on if you wish to be recorded as voting on MC 7-26. We have a favorable motion before us. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that bill also passes unanimously. Thank you to the committee for their work. All right, and our last bill on the agenda for today is from the Metro Washington Area Committee, MCPG 104-26. We are actually going to hold this bill this week. The local committee did vote it out, but we're going to hold it for possible amendment. And I'll say, as we've done in prior sessions, my preference is when we're this early in session is for amendments to go back to the local committee. There actually was a lot of discussion on this bill in local committee earlier this week. So the bill is going to go back to local committee for possible amendment and further discussion there. So rest of the delegation can stay tuned. This will likely be back on for next Friday, but we will see what comes out of local committee on that front. So that is everything on our agenda for today. Let me turn to our committee chairs for announcements about future meetings.
Well, Madam Chair, you started me off, so
go right ahead, Chairman.
Yeah, Metro Washington Area Committee will meet Monday at 1:30 to take a possible amendments on the bill being held today and another bill that was passed out of Prince George's County.
Thank you, Chair Spiegel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Land Use, Transportation, and Public Safety Committee will meet by Zoom at noon on Monday.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Kaufman, do you have an announcement about your committee's meeting?
Yes, I do know that we will be meeting unless something changes at noon on Wednesday, because we still have more discussion regarding Delegate Wu's school holidays bill.
Thank you. And Chair Foley, I believe your drawer continues to be empty. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair. No meeting scheduled for economic development, but watch your inboxes in case we get something from Prince George's County or elsewhere.
Great. Thank you. Anything else from any other members before we adjourn? Okay. Thank you all. We're adjourned for today.